Everybody, this is video 2. In the previous video, we created a very simple game in Claude AI. I was terrible at playing it, and hopefully you will be better than I am. But we're going to take the code generated by Claude, and we're just going to try and deploy it to the web. Here we have the code, and in case Claude only gives you little bits and pieces of the updates, remember to just ask it to give you the complete code. And if you have enough free credits, then it'll do that for you. So do make sure you have the complete code, and then you just say copy the contents over here. And we're going to try and deploy it using a couple of tools. So the first thing you need is you have to create a GitHub account. I couldn't find a different way of deploying. If you can, please let me know. So the first thing you need to do is go to github.com, and then you can sign up, create yourself a free account, and then you should basically see something similar to this. Now, I practiced this a little bit and I had some issues, so let's see if I can have it a little bit smoother here for you. The first thing I think is we want to just kick it off and create a new repository. So GitHub is basically a place where you can store your code, make changes. You can have a team that works on the code. So we want to keep it really simple. So we want to just create a really simple repository just to start things. And this is my username that I signed in with, and I'm just going to call it test. And this is just to test that I can create a repository. I'm going to leave it public. I think that's why I struggled. In the beginning, the default was private. I think it's okay if we just make it public. Keep the rest the same and create a repository. I meant repository. Depository is something else. So let's go back to the main screen. And we kind of done. You can see you have a dashboard in here, and it should tell us how many repositories we have and things like that. And this is the one we just created. We're not going to worry too much about it any further. If you want to know more about GitHub, I'm sure there's tons of stuff on the internet that will help you with that. For now, we're going to just use it. We're going to use it to log into the other tools for us, and we're also going to use it to store the game that we've created. So the second tool you need is code sandbox.io. Don't sign in yourself. We're going to sign in with GitHub, and that will link everything together so that you can easily deploy your code to the internet. So you want to sign in, and it's already signed me in. Let me just sign out and try to force it to sign in. Here we go. Sign in with GitHub. Hopefully now it will link to the account I just created. It might pop up the sign in window for you, and you're just going to give exactly the same credentials that you used for your GitHub login. So now that we signed in, it's given us our dashboard, and we want to create a new sandbox. So let me just delete all the ones I did previously, playing around with. And let's try and do it as you would hit it when you first try and work. So let's see how it goes. We're going to create a new sandbox to play in. And if you remember, the code that Claude generated for us was HTML. You could have asked it to convert that for you to a React container with everything in one. But we ran our credits on the free one. So we're going to keep it as HTML. We have our different templates here. So let's choose the HTML one, and let's say this is my rock jumping game. Certain places you can allow spaces, other places not. I think in repository names you're not allowed to have spaces. So let's just try it like this. For now, let's make it private. I think while I'm testing, I think it needs to be private. And we want to run it in a browser. And now it's creating the little sandbox for us. The sandbox gives us default values for a template. It's a template, right? So it gives us the default values. So on this side is the code. You'll see we've got the index.html page. That's where you normally put your starting point for a web page. It's got some styles and things as well. These are optional, but you must have your index.html for a website to work. And let's replace this just to make sure that it's actually working. So we say hello world, as one does. And if we refresh on the right-hand side, it will show hello world. You can't give a friend that web address. It's all private and in a test environment at the moment, so that's not going to work for you. But that's the whole point of publishing, right? You're first going to practice and play around and tweak things in a private space, and then when you're ready, you're going to publish it and make it available to everybody else. Okay, so now we have the basic framework. Let's go and pick up the code from Claude. We're just going to copy it to the clipboard here. Come back to this page, delete what's there, and Control V. I'm just pasting everything in. So make sure that you've got all the little brackets and things included. If you even miss a single bracket, things are just not going to work. So let's refresh and see. And voila, we have our little game again. Now, it definitely needs some tweaking, but for now, let's just try and publish it to the internet, even in its current state. So the next thing you're going to do is up here, you have your export to GitHub button. So when you press that, you wanted to create a new repository in your GitHub for this game. And I call it here my rock jumping game. So I kind of want to keep the names the same. Cannot contain spaces, right? So let's take the spaces out. And the first time you do this, it might actually ask you to log into GitHub again. And this is my GitHub account name, so it will be under that workspace, and leave it private for now. The first time I tried this, I didn't have anything yet created in my GitHub, and it didn't work. So then I went and created just a dummy repository in here, came back, and then it seemed to be okay. I think it's deployed it. I think all of this stuff on the right-hand side, I think we don't need it. I think it puts it in a little virtual machine rather than using it on a browser. So I'm going to just kill that stuff. Heaven knows what it's doing. Let's ignore that for the moment. So what we're interested in here really is our game. Now we want to deploy it. So we go to another tool called versal.com, and we say to start deploying. And we want to, again, log in with our GitHub account. If all goes well, you should see something like this. And the first time you have to say install GitHub in here. I'm using Firefox now, but I have tried this with Chrome and it was fine. And you may have different projects and you may not want to expose all of them to all these tools. So here I'm going to tell it I only want to select which repositories. And there's a test one we created, and here's the one that was auto-created from codesandbox.io. So let's choose this one. And that should be okay. That should be all we need for now. Again, the deployment's also going to be in two steps. You can have a draft deployment first, and then you can have what they call a production deployment. So the production one is where everyone else can see it. Now let's import the code in here. Give it a name. I'm happy with the default name there. And let's see what options we have here. I think let's keep everything as it is for now. And deploy. It might take a bit of time, depending on the size of your game. And voila, congratulations. We have now got a draft deployment. In fact, if we go to the dashboard, we could see if it's draft or live. Let's see the status here, deployment. So there's a website, terribly long name. It's in this little domain. There are ways to do your own existing web domains, but for now, let's just keep it on their domain. And to update your production deployment, push to the main branch. So it gets more tricky, right? If you wanted to make the code now, then you would have to redeploy and you have to create forks and branches and things potentially. Let's not get into that. You can look at other videos on the internet, but in theory, we have a game. So let's try. And it's ready. It's in production. Okay, so let's see what we have on the screen. So we've got three things here. These are sort of slow deployment ones. So if we look at the information, it says the latest deployment branch. So these are not available on the internet to other people. These are still internal to your working environment. If you want to allow a friend or someone else to play the game, you need to give them this address, and I will actually put this in a bit below the video, so you can go and try it if you want to. But I must warn you, I have found that there's actually a problem in the code with the collision detection with the rocks. That's why I keep crashing. I might tweak it a little bit and play around with it and publish a better version at some point. Also be aware, this version doesn't have support for tablets and phones. You need a keyboard to play it at the moment. You have to press the space key to jump. And again, it's something that could improve. You can, I mean, if you have a little bit of code experience, then you can just go in your sandbox, and you can do it within your sandbox. So you can go back to your game, go back to your sandbox, you have your code, tweak the code directly here, save it, publish it, and deploy it again. I think I've made the game a little bit more playable now. The main problem was that it was not detecting collisions correctly when you resize the rock. So what I've done is in this portion of the code where we set up the slider, I'm just limiting it to a minimum of size 1 and a maximum of size 1. So you can't change the size anymore. That's the one thing that really helps. And the other thing is, if we just search for Control F and then search for animation, it was not staying in the air long enough when you were jumping. So even if you jumped higher, the amount of time that you spent in the air stayed the same. So previously the code here had 400. That's, I guess, the number of milliseconds you would spend in the air. And what I've done now is I've combined the height that you jump with the time that you spend in the air. So by just saying plus jump height, and as you can see, as I type, it gives me the option here. Yeah, so the higher you jump, the longer you stay in the air. I think that just makes it a lot more playable. The other thing I realized is when you press space to jump, initially, notice up there, it's refreshing instead of actually jumping. You have to click in the play area before your keys become usable. So that's just a little trick I found. So you can reset, you refresh there, but then you have to click in here to change the focus into this area. So let's try. Well, we can, while we're at it, we may as well tweak the default values here as well. Let's look for jump height and see where we could tweak the default value. I am not doing case sensitive. It seems to be able to find things. So this looks like the default value. There's two places that things are set. So you have the slider controls with a min and max, and it has a value over there. And then here is with the displayed default value. So let's see if we like these. Yeah, let's keep the rocks far apart to start with, and let's start this with sort of 250. Just have a look where else we have it. In the slider controls. In fact, with the sliders are set, here we go, jump height. It should have a min and max, here we go. So I can't remember what I said the other one, 250, right? Let's have a look. And jump. Okay, much better. Much happier with this. And finally, we have a playable game. I will deploy this one in due course, and then I'll give you the location where you can find it. Well, I might as well just tell you now. It's that address there. This is the old one. I haven't deployed the new one yet, but I will deploy the new one in the same place. So that would be the address that you need to play the game. Okay, so I've published the latest version of the code, so you can play it online. But since it's an HTML page, you can just play it locally. In fact, I could have told you this from the start. You didn't have to publish it to the internet. But not all things can run locally without a bunch of libraries and things that you need to install first. So for a really simple game like this with just a indexed HTML page, you don't really need the style and the package and all the other ones. For a really simple one like this, why don't you just download it from my GitHub? So I'll put the link for you below the video. You can just copy and paste it, or you can just download the file like this. It's going to put in your download folder, and in my case, I've already got it in here, and you can just tell your browser where to look for it. It's sort of this format. So you have to tell it it's a file, you need to tell it the path, and in this case, the name, and it's HTML. And I'm literally running this game locally on my laptop now, and I can make changes to it. Do beware, if you use a text editor or something and you make changes to this file, your browser is going to tend to cache things. It means that it doesn't reload the file every single time. So you're going to have to